Welcome to the D-Spot podcast. Dr. Dana McNeil is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in working with couples using the Gottman Method. Her evidence-based practice provides support for the wide range of relationship issues that modern couples face. By using her open, affirming, and outside-of-the-box thinking, Dr. Dana is able to approach her work with couples by bringing both insights and tools that reflect the realities of today's complicated relationships. Dr. Dana features guests on her podcast that include a unique array of celebrities, CEOs, influencers, and everyday folks who are all working on navigating new conversations about how society views what goes into a successful relationship. And now, here's your host, Dr. Dana McNeil.
Hello and welcome to the D-Spot podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dana McNeil. This is the relationship podcast, all about what goes into making a healthy relationship. This is an ongoing series that I have where I get to introduce you to the amazing clinicians that I get to work with on a daily basis. And Savannah is one of the ones that I definitely want to introduce you to. She is a light around the office. She is a wonderful therapist, and I wanted to give you a chance to meet her. So introduce yourself, Lev. Tell us a little bit about you and why you decided to become a therapist.
Okay. Hi. Hello, everybody. My name is Savannah, and I have been at the relationship place for almost about a year now. So been going.
With COVID, it feels like 5 years being a year as a couples therapist.
Yes, adding a couple years to that for sure. I decided to become a therapist for a couple of reasons. I think in school, I was definitely interested in like psychology courses and classes of that nature. And I knew I wanted to work with families, in couples and adults. I just didn't really know like where I would fit with that. And then growing up, I saw a family member go to therapy, experience her own therapy experience, and become like a better overall person to herself and to my family, to me as well. So it really helped me like have a very positive view of what therapy is.
So speaking of that, why do you think that so many of us, particularly couples, don't have a positive view of going to couples therapy? Because that's one of the stigmas we really have to work with a lot. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's something that I find myself often supporting couples with, reframing that, because I think I hear that a lot in the therapy office of, it's a shame that we're here, or like we shouldn't need therapy, couples therapy. And I think that couples therapy is just as important and at times as individual therapy is. And if individual therapy is important, why can't couples therapy be important too? And I know something we often talk about here at the relationship place is that no couples were given a handbook, right? Or a way of how to be in a healthy relationship and have good communication. So this is just a great way to be able to act on that and work on improving in those areas.
To have tools, right? Because we don't spring into the world with tools about how to handle messy, complicated situations or conversations, which is definitely what leads into what you want to talk today, because you about intentional and bringing an important topic, right? Which is hanging out with Savannah, you're probably not going to know how to do, right? We're not just walking through life being like, well, let me be intentional. Mental note. I've got my notes here on my mental Rolodex about how to do it. So why is that important? And tell us what that means. Because somebody listening to this right now being like, I'm not even sure what you're talking about. So tell us a little bit of what that means and why it's so important, and then get us into it.
Yeah, well, I chose this topic because I find that this is something that a lot of people can relate to or want to work better on. So a couple ways to think about it is whenever maybe we find ourselves like frustrated with our partner, or there's something that maybe we've been like holding internally, not really sharing, but it's on our mind, it's on our hearts, and we want to talk about it. Sometimes in conflict, I know that a lot of couples can struggle with suppressing emotions, and then these feelings coming out in a not
aggressive way,
right, high conflict type of way. So I find that being intentional in the way that we talk about these important things, though maybe the way that how we feel in the relationship. It could even be things outside of the relationship, like things we're upset about with our family, or processing the news, like what's going on in the world, things like that. Creating a space to be intentional about how we talk about these things prior to like talking about it just when we're in a heated conflict.
Okay, so pause there a little bit. I want to unpack, why is it that we're so scared to bring these up? Because that comes from something. What in your perspective, what does that come from, this fear of being intentional or having uncomfortable conversations?
I think a lot of it comes from being conflict avoidant, right? It's usually easier to talk about lighthearted, fun things with our partner and other people, and finding the space to talk about something that maybe seems heavier. And if somebody is conflict avoidant, they're probably worried that it's going to lead to a conflict when that doesn't have to be the case.
Like my partner won't love me as much, or they won't think I'm fun to be around, so they'll avoid me, like that kind of conflict avoidant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. So this is a big pill for some couples to swallow then, right? I don't like to do uncomfortable things. I'm not sure our relationship can handle us doing uncomfortable things, and I can barely tolerate the thought of bringing them up. So this is a tool that you're giving to the people who find themselves in this place, which would be probably 90% of the clients that come to our office, right? What's step one? How do you set your intentions for having an intentional conversation? What is that? How do you set up the space for it?
Yeah, well, a couple of ways. One of the main tools that I know we talk a lot about here with the Gottman Method is the gentle startup. So the way to be able to gently bring up how we feel about something and express our need. And I always find myself telling couples it's called gentle startup for a reason. So we want to be gentle. We want to be intentional, meaning knowing that we're in a proper headspace to bring something up as well. If we're having a really tough day and it feels too heavy to talk about and we need to kind of practice coping skills, work on ourselves, maybe that's not the best day to bring it up. Maybe the next day where we feel like we've gotten good sleep, ate well, and are in a better headspace. So that's kind of timing.
Okay.
And sometimes, and I am realistic about that, sometimes we do need to just bring things up in the moment if that's truly how we feel. But I think the more that we are intentional about like, I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to bring it up in a calm way, and knowing that we're in like as best of a headspace as we can be.
So being more aware of who you are and that it's not serving you to, like, when I'm mad at you, then throw everything at you because I don't have any filters and I'm not going to get my needs heard. I'm just going to probably evoke some kind of defensive response. And then that doesn't do any of us any good, because then we're in a conflict, which we were trying to avoid by being intentional.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Good. You got my attention. So I'm being aware that I have to do timing. I have to check in with my partner if it's a good time. I have to be aware if I'm in a mental space where it can come out the way that I hoped for. Okay. And then what's the next step?
The next step would be, well, like I mentioned before, the gentle startup. So where we do bring up how we feel, what we need from our partner, and also being able to share some appreciation if possible. And this is a way of, like, I always tell couples that I see, of even being aware of our tone of voice, our heart rate, our overall like emotional being, how can we remain calm in that conversation? Or sometimes even letting your partner know ahead of time, hey, there's something important I want to talk to you about tonight, helping to kind of prepare the conversation as best as you can. And with that, also like weekly check-ins, I find myself always recommending, and I know that's something that the Gottmans recommend too, having set aside time. What's recommended is 3 times a week, but it can be different for every couple. Of these are the times where we're going to have these intentional conversations and talk about things that maybe we know that we need to talk about or feel kind of difficult to talk about.
So when you have those couples that are like, Savannah, this is a lot of words. Why can't my partner just handle it? Why is it my job to make sure that they feel okay about things? What do you say to those clients? Because you have them.
Yes. I often say that nobody here is a mind reader, right? We can never, our partner can't know what we need and how we need it unless we communicate it. And I also just validate that being in a relationship is can be hard work. It's not so simple to just, wish that your partner, hope that your partner meets your need without expressing it. So, and with that, I see the benefit in talking about these things versus not. So I really try to normalize, like, it is important to talk about this, then it's like sweep it under the rug.
What happens if I assume that my partner's going to say no? And like, why would I waste my time, Savannah? They're just going to say no. They never do anything I ask them to do. Should I just keep it to myself?
No, definitely not. I would recommend trying to give your partner the benefit of the doubt as well. Like if we were really fearful or worry that they're not going to like be open to feedback, especially while in the couples therapy process, this is a time to like be open and trying to listen to each other's needs as well. So with that though, giving the benefit of the doubt of how can I try to give my partner like the possibility, or see that they could possibly be receptive to this versus shutting it down immediately.
And one of the things that we talk about a lot, and you're really good at doing this with your clients, is you need to ask for your needs, even if the answer is no, because you need practice knowing that you're worthy of them, right? We don't just ask questions where we know the answer so that it feels safer, so we avoid conflict, because that's sneaky pants, right? You don't just do like, well, then I'll never feel upset. It's okay that your partner says no.
Mm-hmm.
Right? One of the things that we talk about a lot is anything my partner does for me is a gift. They're not required to by virtue of the fact that we're in a relationship together. You don't avoid communicating that because you don't want to deal with the fact that they might not be open to giving you a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do you navigate your clients through when they get stuck in that space?
Yeah, well, that is where, again, I do a lot of normalizing that just because this need is important to you, which should be expressed because, right, we are worthy of expressing our need, that, yeah, the partner might have some questions or might not necessarily be sure on how to meet that need or might have some resistance. So then it's a conversation about compromise or trying to meet in the middle there. So like with the gentle startup, right, whenever a partner expresses their what they're feeling, what their need is, I create a collaborative discussion for the couple to ask, how is this need possible to meet? Is it realistic? Can it be tweaked around a little bit for the person who's receiving this to be maybe more open to it?
Do you think that couples who are mindful of the way that they ask for things, does that give them more success in finding a partner that's open to compromise because they've put in that extra effort of like asking in a way that they can hear it?
Yes. Yeah, I think that if we are able to be mindful or intentional about how we bring something up, I mean, there's no promises, right, of how our partner is going to like react, which that would be great if they could. But I think the more intentional and mindful you are, that's what you're doing. Your part is you can hope and we can try to get the partner to meet you there, but it's not always realistic.
So I'm hearing you say it can change a relationship to have one of us change. If my partner's not on board or they're not getting it or they're resistant or they're in pain or whatever their story is, I can model for them what I would like our relationship to look like moving forward.
Yeah.
How do you encourage that client that's frustrated and tired of feeling like they're doing all of the modeling? How do you encourage them to keep going and doing that?
Mm-hmm. I think just a lot of like continuing to validate and normalize that it is hard being in a relationship at times. Sometimes it's vulnerable and it is kind of like a never-ending process of expressing our needs and our wants. So it's not something that just kind of goes away. But in those couples therapy sessions, when one is frustrated, I think I often try to find ways that the other partner can also try to meet them in the middle, or them both try to find compromises so it's not fully on one partner.
Good. What other tips do you have for us on being intentional in our conversations with our partner?
I would say also like timing of the day is very important. I find that especially couples who have, which 90% of our couples work, 9-to-5 jobs or maybe odd hours as well. And it's hard to find a time to talk. It's Monday. The next thing they know, it's Sunday night. Like time just flies by. So kind of reiterating the weekly check-ins and also time of day. I know that I've had a lot of people, partners recommend or say, I'm way more receptive to this conversation in the morning versus nighttime. So really finding out what that looks like, because every couple is different, to help them be successful, right? If their least favorite time to talk about heavy things is at night and their partner brings it up at night, that's going to be a problem, most likely.
Because it's not that they're being difficult, you're just being aware of when you're most likely to get them at their best. And so when they can process, right? Let me have a cup of coffee before you ask me an important question. And then I won't be a grizzly bear at you because I have all my faculties about me. Or vice versa, if I have a long day and I'm mentally tapped out and I'm thinking about snuggling up on a pillow and you spring on me something important, it's not that I don't love you, it's that I don't have the mental capacity to be that person. But I'm also hearing you say that we have to be mindful that we don't use that as a weapon, right? There has to be a time that you have a good time of day, and you have to give your partner some access to you.
Totally. And I recommend, like, I like to use the word, like, even over communicating about these things, like being very, very specific, because the more specific we are about, like, this is the time of day that works best for me, this is the time of day that I do not want to have heavy conversations. The more specific we are, the more likely our partner is actually going to meet our need and understand where we're coming from. Like if we just say, oh, I'm available in the morning time, right? There's a lot of ambiguity with that.
Right. Because at morning time, while I'm taking a shower, walking the dog and packing lunch, that doesn't mean that you're going to be present with me. That means you're half listening to me while you're cutting up celery and filling dog food bowls. That's not a healthy communication. That's me half listening and then not participating.
Totally.
So that's, you're saying clients like carve this sacred time out where I'm able to give you 10 or 20 minutes. And my side note is, if you can't put 10 or 20 minutes in your relationship a day, I don't know, you should probably not be in one, because if you're giving your job 8 hours a day and you can't give your partner 20 minutes, then we have a problem.
Right. Yeah.
A bigger problem. And we should go see Savannah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That is, that's very important to find that balance. And 20 minutes a day really isn't, I mean, we can do anything in 20 minutes. That's the way I like to think about it.
Okay, great. So one of the questions I like to ask everyone that comes on is, what is your definition of commitment?
Definition of commitment. Okay, put on the spot here. So let me.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's just, I just find it an interesting question because I don't think most of us talk about it with our partners. And if we did, would it like clear up some stuff before we get entangled with each other? I don't know. I'm just curious what everyone's definition is.
Well, I think commitment is, let's see, both partners being like on the same, having a lot of open communication and being very transparent about how they feel about the relationship and what their like agreements are as well. I think, you know, I know that obviously there's different types of relationships, whether that's monogamous or poly relationships as well. So being aware of, hey, if I'm in this committed relationship with you, does that mean it's just the two of us, or is another person joining, or do we have freedom in that aspect? So I think it's about both or all partners finding that really common ground of what they believe is like what the rules around their relationship.
Great, beautiful, perfect. Even on the spot, you did fantastic. So what do you want couples to know who are like, hey, I want to work with you? What words of wisdom or hope do you give them?
Yeah, well, I always find myself saying that I try not to be biased when I say the Gottman Method is the best, but it is the best.
Agreed.
It's one of the best. And I think that here at the Relationship Place, myself, all the clinicians here, you've done such a good job at like training us in this method and also having just real honest conversations about how to support couples and navigate certain situations. So I feel like I have really gained a lot of tools and ability to support couples with variety of things, and definitely continuing to try to break down the stereotype around couples therapy as well, or the stigma, I should say.
Well, I appreciate you giving me this time. You are a delightful person. I'm a better person for knowing you, and our clients are very, I know, grateful and appreciative of all your wisdom that you share with them. So thanks for giving us this time today.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, sweetness. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
This has been the D-Spot Podcast with Dr. Dana McNeil. To learn more about Dr. Dana's practice, simply visit us at www.danamcneil.com.